boot camp. Boot camp, the acronym is that because of others' testimony, Christ answered our prayers, answered my prayers, is the acronym for boot camp. And today we're centered here. We're going to be dealing with young men, young adult men, and their faith. And so today we have three young men who've grown up in our church, more or less, at Galilee, and they are either on their way out of high school or they have already completed college and they're actually working in careers that they've chosen paths of life. So I'm going to let you brothers introduce yourselves. Cam, I'll start with you, and then Michael will come to you. Michael, make sure you unmute yourself so you can do that, and then Michael love it, okay? All right, go ahead.
I'm Cameron Foster. I'm attending Northwood High School right now, but I'll be leaving to go to McNeese in June.
Okay. Michael?
How you doing? I'm Micah Mentor. I'm an academic interventionist and also a special education teacher at KNCP, Kip Northeast in Houston, Texas.
Michael Lovett.
Okay, Michael Lovett, recent graduate of Louisiana Tech. Right now I'm just working at AT&T in retail and sales.
And once again, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Stephen Grant. I'm deacon at Galilee Missionary Baptist Church. I do the Sunday school preview and lesson for the whole church. And I'm also the chair leader, ministry leader for the boot camp, as well as principal at Green Oaks. So today we're going to be discussing young men and really the faith that young people deal with, because one of the questions always comes out about when people leave church or they move on from high school, move on to college and so forth, there is a distance and a gap between what they're used to, all of the support pieces that were in place when they were growing up and right at their disposal. But when they move away, we all know that there is sometimes a distance that can develop between young people in their church, their parents, or in their faiths to some degree. So when the Bible says, train up a child in the way that they should go, and as they grow old, they will not depart from it, is where we're really trying to really look at it and see. But this is from the perspective of young adult men, not from the adult of myself or those before, but from them. So I encourage everyone who's listening, please listen to what these young men are saying about their faith, and don't take for granted that your children are not experiencing these things or have experienced these things or will experience these things. And so they're going to be truthful about their faith from their perspective and so forth. So I ask you to listen. So, all right, guys, I got a series of questions I'm going to ask, and anytime you just chime in and when you want to and so forth. I mean, sometimes I may actually just point it out to you. So the first question I'm going to ask, I'm going to put on my glasses because I ain't no spring chicken no more, so I have to put on glasses from time to time. So let me ask you this. What do you think is or was the biggest challenge to your faith since high school? And I know, Cam, you're in high school, but you can still chime in on this. The biggest challenge, okay? Michael?
Look, I was pointing at Michael. Look, do you want to go or me?
Nah, you go.
All right. For me, the biggest challenge was probably around my sophomore year in high school. I'm sorry, college. I graduated from Bird and everything, signed to go to Texas Southern. And so, I'm 4 hours from my family. And, for so long, football was my outlet to life in general. And so around my sophomore year, I was expected to start, that's what the coaches were telling me and everything. And so I get to my sophomore season, we're in camp and everything. And, things just start to change. My outlook on football really starts to change. We aren't really winning games. I'm putting in the work, but, it's no results. And so, I remember asking God, like, why did you send me down here if this isn't working out? And I remember, it took me a long time to really figure it out, through prayer and just really, and you can ask my parents, I wanted to quit football so bad, but I knew I would have to pay for school then. And, I was questioning God, like, why did you send me down here? Why am I in this position? But it was a test of my faith. It was the first big test of my faith. There were many others after that. But, just to really put your faith in Christ and to know that everything, his plan for you supersedes what you can currently see in your reality. And so to really just keep that mindset, that was the first big test of my faith. Are you going to trust me when things get hard? Are you going to trust me when it does not feel good? Nothing that I'm doing to you right now feels good. But again, all things work together for the good of those. So, in the end, it's a long story behind all of that, but that was the first big test of my faith.
Yeah, and for myself, I would probably say it wasn't just like a specific moment or anything. It was just that once I got to a certain point in my college career, especially like when I added, because I was a journalism major initially, and then when I added that second major, it was kind of like, um, it's kind of like a lot of college kids go through. Like, you think you go in thinking that you know what you want to do, like, and to be honest, that's a lot of pressure that society and people kind of put on, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, that you got to figure out what you really want to do for quote unquote the rest of your life, or for a career at that young of an age. And so when I changed my major, I didn't change it, I added a second major because I really saw myself having a passion more for K through 12 education, for teaching and for coaching, more than I did for journalism, especially with the way that my curriculum had kind of shaped out with journalism. Because it was a lot of times, I'm not gonna lie, the first couple of years, I had a professor, Mr. Boatwright, and I love Mr. Boatwright to death. But Mr. Boatwright didn't like teaching that much, so it kind of got to a point where I questioned a lot, like, am I really learning? Like, I'm learning stuff, but am I really learning, like on a consistent, putting into practice type of basis? And true enough, I put myself in certain positions where I was able to have volunteer positions for like the athletic communications department. I did that. But in terms of just challenging my faith, it was kind of, once that happened, I kind of left it to God, like, okay, God knows that I'm somebody that likes to see things from all perspectives and explore. I'm not somebody, like, I'm not a 9 to 5 type person, basically. So, having that pressure of trying to figure out what I want to do for 8, 9 hours a day for, 20, 30 years, like, I think God kind of knew that wasn't something that I was just going to immediately, like, right now at this particular moment, going to be able to accept, because he knew I was going to be wanting to explore things. And so then it got to the point where I was a double major for 2.5 years. And then, I was saying, you be in college, Mike know how it is, and Brother Grant know how it is, man. You get burnt out, man. You be here too long. Like, the culture is fun and everything, but when it comes to just that class, and you already been in school for 13 years, K through 12, so now you come in here where they did more teaching than some of these college professors do. To be honest, like, a lot of people notice that when you get to college, man, it's a lot of teaching yourself, unless the professors and instructors really care. So then I started to get burnt out, and I ended up dropping that second major at the end of last November. Because we're Louisiana Tech, we're on quarter system, so I ended up dropping that at the end of November, and now I was kind of back to square one in terms of, now, okay, I'm just a journalism major, but I wanted to get, I still wanted to get a little something extra. So what I did, I dropped the second major, then I added 2 minors, one in sports performance, one communication studies, so that I wouldn't feel like, okay, this 4.5 years that I done been here, like, I'm only just getting the initial degree that I was supposed to get, when I could have got that last September had I not been a double major. And then I got a lovely email from financial aid. We love those. Financial aid email saying that my financial aid and the total amount of attempted credits that I have attempted will have succeeded my financial aid at the end of this quarter. So now I was in a position that now I got to graduate. I got to go ahead and graduate with this first degree. So now I only have this one degree. And so now it just, in terms of directing back to the question of, that was the biggest test of my faith, because I think God kind of opened the windows, like, okay, I'm going to let you see yourself having a passion for this, and now looking back at it, even though I only got the journalism degree, you know, I don't necessarily have to have that second degree. First of all, if I want to do coaching, like I have a degree, like a lot of times a degree, any type of degree will get you to where it gets you in the door. And then going back and say getting a teaching certificate, because I know in the state of Louisiana you got to be a certified teacher. So
right.
now I don't necessarily have to go back and get that second degree to be able to be a coach or to be able to be a teacher if that's what I so choose to do. But I think it's just being open-minded about God's open-mindedness for me. Like he knows my heart, he knows what type of person I am, he knows my ways, my habits. And I've started to pick up on that as well. You learn more about yourself once you go to college, once you go to school. So
Okay.
he really opened my eyes in terms of me knowing that I have a lot of choices, a lot of options to choose from of routes to go in my life. So I'd say that was probably about my biggest test of faith, is just letting him, you know, open my eyes a little bit more as to what that I want to do, and not really just trying to lock me down on something that's
Right.
permanent right now.
So let me remind everybody who's maybe just chiming in. We're talking with three young men who've grown up in the church family, pretty spiritual and faith-based people, and we're talking about the challenges of young men, young adult men. So one of the things that often happen is we see that there's not a large participation with young adults once they get out of high school, their involvement in church. So let me ask you this: are young men and even young women, are they merely disinterested in traditional church, or are they seriously struggling to hold on to faith? Cam, I'll let you start with that one. Once again, you know, or are young people just disinterested in the traditional church, or are they really struggling with their faith? Cam?
Uh, I, yeah, I think it's kind of half and half. I think some of them are just uninterested in traditional church. Like I can tell from just going through school, just talking with other people, be like, "Oh yeah, you went to church today?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "What you did on Sunday?" They were like, "I got up, played the game." So I can tell that some of them just don't go to church, or some of them just haven't been raised up there with to go to church. And like for me, during that time, like doing church like on Zoom or over the phone or something, there, I can't get used to it like I want to. That I'm used to Sunday morning, give me a little break for going to church, going to Sunday school. That's what I used to look forward to. Then as I see other people go to school and some dudes I play football with, like they get up on Sunday, they probably just be lounging around the house. Like one of my homeboys, like he was like, I think he was our freshman in
Hey,
school.
do me a
I
favor,
was in there
Cam.
talking.
I don't
So
want to interrupt you,
we
but
ended up just talking about church. And so we
can you
asked
hear
him, he
me,
was like,
Cameron? Yeah, kind of hold. You might have to move to a different area in your room. Your camera is dragging, and so we really can't understand what you're saying because it's pausing in gaps. So maybe you might have to move a little bit closer to your thing at your house or something like that because we can barely hear you. Okay. Hey, one of you guys want to piggyback on that question there is, are young men and young women, or just young men, are they disinterested in traditional church, or are they really struggling with their faith?
Um, I think it's a mixture of both, honestly. I think that, sometimes the stigma of quote traditional church, it's kind of like, okay, you do this hooping and hollering, and what do we get from the message? But then on the other hand, it's like, how in tune are you with your spiritual walk to actually, even if it is just a nugget, it doesn't necessarily have to be, the big kahuna. When someone's preaching, are you spiritually in tune enough to actually grasp something from what the message is saying? And so I think that the stigma of, okay, what's the purpose of an old 100? Because if you talk to the vast majority of young adults now, some may have grown up in the Black Baptist church or in a traditional church. I don't just want to limit it to African Americans, but since we are African American, I would definitely say if you ask them, you know, what's an old 100 or a hymn or, you know, quote a slave song, and it's like, you know, well, do you understand the relevance of it, you know, or, you know, I think so. That's the biggest thing within adults now.
So do you think that the church needs to do a better job communicating the purpose or what these things that we do that are traditional, so that young people get a better understanding to apply to their faith?
Yes, because I think that's just part of the bridging the gap. I was raised around older people, so it was kind of easy for me to grasp this. You know, I was coming from Mississippi. That's, you know, we may be in Jackson, but part of my time as a child, you know, you spent in the country. So, you know, you moved to Shreveport and everything, and so it's an easy transition. But growing up around older people, that's just what you're exposed to, and so I do think that they're, you know, bridging that gap between, you know, older generation, younger generation, that's extremely important. I wouldn't say that, you know, you have to X out everything from older generations, but times are changing. And that's the truth. The truthful part of it is times are changing. And so I think the church has to do a great job overall with staying up to date. You know, if you have, just take for instance, we all have iPhones. You know, if you take your iPhone and, you know, you're behind, or your cellular device, and you're behind 5 or 6 generations, 5 or 6 updates, your phone is lagging, literally, you know. And so you have to stay up to date. The church has to stay up to date with the times. We don't have to mesh with the times, but you have to stay up to date with them.
Well, so, and Michael, what from you? What do you think?
I agree with a lot of what Micah said. On the same wave, like he said, he grew up around older people. Y'all know I was mainly raised by my grandparents and my dad is almost 60 himself. So it's along the same wave. Like us, like he said, it was easier for us to kind of grasp because we were in a routine for a long time of, okay, we're here on Wednesdays, choir rehearsal, we're here on Sundays for church. We was in stuff like drill team, Boy Scouts. So we were involved in the church. So when it came to the traditions of the church, it was an easier transition for us to be able to grasp it. And then I would say, I think I can speak for me and Mike when I say that now that we're older and that we can understand it more, and obviously you have COVID and everything going on, the fact that we haven't been able to have that regularity that we were used to, like it's a lot of times I'll be thinking like, man, like I just want to go to Galilee, like just for one Sunday, you know, even though I'm in wrestling, because that's just what I've been raised on. But it makes more sense to us now. It really started to make more sense to us junior, senior year of high school, and then when college hit, it really started to make sense. But in terms of the question, he's right. The church definitely has to be able to adapt. Anything that wants to be sustained and wants to keep going has to be able to adapt to the times that they're in. And you know, there was a simple quote that I hear a lot. It's like, only fools don't change. And not to say the church of fools or anything, because obviously tradition with purpose is great and it's needed. But if you're not willing and you're not open to, you know, change and being able to adapt and like, okay, listening to maybe what your younger generation in the church has to say, or their opinion on things, or maybe what they're going through. Because I feel like that's it's not necessarily that young men and women want to be disinterested in the traditional church. It's just that the traditional church isn't really trying to hear them, so to say. You know what I'm saying? Like,
You know what? You bring up an interesting point, and I totally agree with you guys in that. So there are two options for me. I may have been a little different than other parents, but with my children, it was two options. I was not going to force them into something that they really did not enjoy, because I felt they would not give unto God what they could. And I'm not saying that parents forces them into it. I think they expose them to it. But I gave them requirements. You will join and be a part of something within the children's ministry or the youth ministry, and they gravitated obviously to the ushers and working in the media and things of that. But my question to you guys would be, what would be some things tangible right now you think that the church could do to maybe pique those interests of young people? What are some one or two things? And I'll bring you up to speed. We're talking about about whether or not people are interested or disinterested in the church, and what are some things that the church could possibly do to reach out to really capture young adults. And we talk about post-high school kids in particular. So what do you guys think are some things that, possibly you could see that they could do? It could be from the types of services. It could be, a multitude of things.
I think I hate to be the kind of cliche in terms of just our race and our group of people and community, because I've been trying to I want people to have a mindset of getting away from just entertainment or stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you got to find something that's interesting you in terms of, okay, for instance, me, y'all know I was in the media ministry. So then I was able to relate. I was a journalist in college. I was able to take that with me. And then I was also able to see what I could do with that I had an interest or passion for within the church. So going back to the cliche statement, it's like, I know back years ago, we had like church leagues when it came to sports, stuff like that. And if you just getting youth involved in the church and stuff that they do every day at school, like for instance, like sports, media. Obviously, I think we've all had times in music, like with the choir and Michael, I know with the drums, just stuff like that. Find the church and youth need to come together to see, okay, what do y'all like to do, and how can we implement that so we can relate that back to your spiritual journey or what you may be going through in everyday life. Because if you're doing something every day, but then you're also on the side, like a couple times a week, you're doing it, but it's also being able to be related to your spiritual journey. Then that majority of the week that you're not doing it for that spiritual purpose, you'll still be able to carry those lessons, those teachings, and you'll be able to walk. It'll be kind of an easier walk, so to say, I believe.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I want to move this to another question. I think you guys are right on. I think the church has to continue to evolve. And when I mean evolve, I'm not talking about changing what is the truths of our church, the foundation that Jesus Christ, who is God, became flesh, and that he died on a cross and was resurrected and ascended back to heaven. Those are the tenements that we believe deeply. But I do agree with you that there has to be an analysis or an evaluation of the church and what it's doing, how it's reaching young people. So let me ask you this one question here then. Do you still seek spiritual guidance, and from who and why? Do you seek, huh?
Definitely. So the phase that I'm in, I am engaged in everything. That has been, and this is just a moment of transparency. And the reason why I'm gonna go on this whole little spiel is because it's a thing that a lot of men don't really talk about, and a lot of women don't actually know that a lot of men struggle with it. Playing football for so long, you build up walls in your mind to block pain, right? Because in your mind, are you hurt or are you injured? And so eventually, and this is one thing I'm learning about myself as a young man, as a man, but eventually that mindset transfers over into your emotions, right? Because you end up blocking out your own emotions. So you end up being 21, 22, 23, 26, 30 years old, and emotionally you're detached from yourself. You don't really know yourself. You feel pain, but you don't know how to express it, whether it be emotional, mental, or physical. And so it takes you a while to really get to that point. And so being engaged in everything, there's a lot that you have to balance. You're balancing trying to create a family, and you're balancing, making sure that you're financially stable, and, making sure that she has what she needs, and you balancing your career and your own spiritual walk. And just making sure that all your ducks are in a row. And so as a male, you kind of get to this point, and I got to this point at one point in time, you're like, bruh, when is that cross the finish line moment? When is that moment that you're just like, I made it, whew, I broke through? And the truth of the matter is every male goes through that stage, but most, I would probably say about 90% suffer through that stage alone because of the simple fact that we don't really reach out. It's kind of, in a way, social stigma frowns upon a dude being like, a man being like, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing right now. Or, socially it's frowned upon to be like, to really be just vulnerable and spill your guts. And so, yes, you have to look out for that spiritual guidance because of the simple fact that you want advice as a man that's not coming from, bro, I think that you just need to do X, Y, and Z and just let it rock. I don't need that. I need, word-centered advice, something that can feed me. And so, I think that that's the thing that's really important. I'm not going to be long-winded on this point, but the truth of the matter is I feel that that every church, and I only learned this at the church that I'm currently at, every church, especially in the men's ministry, because, there is men, we're called to lead our homes. We're called to be priests of our homes. We're called to be leaders in society. Most of the problems that are experienced in society are because men are not standing up. That's just the truth of the matter. But in every church, in the church body, it needs to be, if you're 23 years old like me, I have to have somebody that's 30 years old, 45, in that been there, done that age range. And honestly, that brother needs to have someone who's in that 60 to 70 age range that can lead him. So it's kind of like a trickle effect. And I have me as 23 years old, I have somebody that's 16, 15, 14 years old that I'm leading, and so it's a trickle effect. So everything, it falls down from the older generations down. And so you need that wisdom, but it has to be coupled with the spiritual guidance. And I think that that's something that a lot of men's ministries, they may have, but it needs to be widespread because, you're affecting generations here. These are people, these are children who are going to carry your last name. These are women that's going to depend on you until your dying day. And so you have to have that structure in place to actually be able to cultivate leaders and men of influence.
All right, Cam, what about you? So do you still seek spiritual guidance, and from who and why?
Yes, I do, and I see mine from actually you. And I know a couple times during COVID when everything was kind of gray during that, offers and like, when is everything gonna open back up? I know a couple times we talked on the phone, and then it was like, okay, you gave me that reinsurance to look at God and everything gonna be okay with Him, and so it's basically like how I went about it. And I know every time we talked on the phone, I was like, all right, I brought it back down, and then it was like, okay, we'll start back over, and then look at God, ask Him, pray about it, talk about it, and then move forward from there. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And something you said, Michael, that is so important is that we reach to people who have been through it, that can still talk to us, but we also need to make sure that we're reaching back down to those who are falling behind us. Because the greatest resources that we have, guys, in our lives is not money, but it's people. It's people. So who are, and you guys can talk about it. We'll start with you, Michael. Uh, uh, give us one or two people that you saw as role models, and they're still role models for you today. Talking about faith and spiritual brothers in this regards here, though.
Well, for me, I think I was father was Pastor Jones, was someone. But other than that, just on a spiritual level, it really I say Brother Pollard, definitely. You and Brother Pollard, because Brother Blaylock, it was more of like I said, once we got older and we started understanding more. I think Micah can agree with me on this, that we enjoy going to Sunday school more because we could actually understand, because we were starting to go through it, and so the teaching aspect of it was starting to quote unquote click for us more so than the preaching and everything and catching the spirit was. So but it's just those people, and obviously my grandmother, my grandparents, my father. Like my father is one of my kind of one of my examples of faith, in terms of I know his story, I know what he's been through, what he struggled with, and being that one, he was able to get through it, he was still able to be a great father. That kind of motivates me, and that keeps me at bay, in terms of, okay, well, I know what I can revert back to if I ever come to this type of obstacle, or when life starts to throw punches, because life gonna throw punches. Like it's gonna throw punches for sure. But once that does happen, I feel like I've been equipped, and then just being raised in Galilee for all these years, I think I've been equipped with the tools that once those times do come, I'll be able to be prepared. Now, not saying that it's gonna, like, every time I'm gonna be I'm gonna knock it out the park, because I'm not, because it's not easy. It's not simple to just, okay, yeah, I've been equipped with this, but it's about actually putting it into practice. And like Micah knows that, you could tell somebody 100 times. Cam knows too, when it comes to like football, sports, like a coach can show you how to do it, or he could tell you how to do it, but it's up to you to actually be able to do it. So and to
So
just go ahead.
I'll pose that question to you, Cameron. Same thing. Some folks that are role models for you spiritually. Who have those people been?
I know as far as in the church, it's been you, Brother Pollard, and Coach Carter. I know we talk a bunch throughout the day, but then of course my mom, dad, my grandma, and them, from growing up, getting me ready for church, let me know that I got a problem with anything, talk to God, or anything wrong, talk to God. And so that's really been my spiritual role models, as far as just being at home or going to church, and just looking at those people and being, okay, I want to do what they do. I want to grow up and how they talk to God, how they live, how they walk with God, and stuff like that.
Michael, same question.
Definitely. I mean, my own father. Everybody knows him as Brother Pollard. I know him as Dad. So, but Brother Grant. I mean, the list could really go on. Brother Jeter, Brother Ephraim, Mac Moore, Brother Alfred. I mean, like men and Boy Scouts. I mean, it's just, the list could go on and on and on. I really can't put my finger on just one person,
Right.
but because there's so many. But the reality is that some aren't as fortunate as the three that are on this call. And that's the truly sad part, because I understand how much these men actually poured into my life and didn't want anything for it. Michael, Cam, y'all can attest, they never charged us for what we call free game. They never charged us for that. It was just kind of like, I just want to see you do well, go and be prosperous, so, but the reality, I think that, we have to, because I see it so much at the school that I'm at, and that's why I'm so gung-ho about it. It's just, we have to be able to just pay it forward. We have to be able to reach back and touch some young kid's life, because it can't be enough just being like, oh my gosh, there's so many Black brothers out here that's going to jail. What's happening in Shreveport? There's so many murders. It's like, okay, yeah, all right. So we know the problem. How are we going to fix it? Are we going to be a problem solver or a problem identifier? And so I think that it's just extremely vital that we all seek, because we all have a lot of wise words. I mean, Michael, you probably have a touch that's unimaginable, you know, as far as the guys that you can reach. And the same with me and Cam, once you get to college, you know, it's going to be the same thing. But it's more so about, you know, putting ourselves in position to go and reach out to those younger guys, because the reality is some don't even have 5. You know, we were able to name, each of us were to name at least 3, but some don't even have 1, you know. So, you know, you just be mindful of those too.
You know, and the reason I asked you guys that question, because I want those men in particular, the men, but also anyone at our church to know that young people, even when they're growing up, they're watching and they're listening. I think sometimes as adults, we can forget that. And we sometimes may want to beat your head like a drum with it, but you really see it, and you see it more in what people do more than what they say. And I always tell people that listen, it sounds crazy, but I always say, listen to what people do, not what they say, because when their audio matches their visual, then they become valid in your eyes. So I want to flip this to this then. What is 1 or 2 spiritual truths that you learned from your parents or grandparents that you still apply to your life today? One spiritual or two spiritual truths that you learned from your parents or your grandparents that you still apply to your life today. I'll start with you, Cameron.
For me, it's really just, I probably say read my Bible. Cause I know anytime getting up, being at my grandma's house all through the summertime, I know if it'd probably be like 5 in the morning, I could roll over, I still be asleep. I glance over, she read her Bible, and then throughout the day, it's getting toward nighttime. We all getting ready for bed. It's maybe 10 o'clock at night. We all tired. We done had a long day. It's still we glance. She reading her Bible. So that's one thing that I'm gonna keep with me is just read my Bible, knowing that the word is gonna help me through whatever I got going.
All right, Micah.
I'd probably say the same thing, but and I learned that really from my dad. I mean, dude, this dude is so funny. He used to sit in he used to sit in the hallway and like read his Bible at like 5 in the morning, man. I used to get up and I used to like peek around the corner. This dude literally like sitting on the floor just like reading his Bible. But you know, I saw that really growing up and everything. But I'll probably say the other thing was just wait. And it sounds cliche, as Michael said, but literally, like my dad really taught me just how to wait on God, you know, and that went from college offers to even job opportunities to even when I was trying to get certified in the state of Texas to actually get my teaching license to actually be in the special education department. Like just wait on God, man, because like you may be rushing it and like that timing that you're on, it may not be syncing up with what he wants for you. And so just wait, just be patient.
Love it.
2 things that I could just readily identify off of my own personal experience would be one, especially in the last couple months, like 6-7 months, man. It says in the word, God will supply all your needs. Like man, I'm telling you, that's done got me through just the last couple of like the last half of the year last year, and now it's like, man, you may not know where it's gonna come from, but it's coming, and it's gonna get exactly where it needs to go. And once it happened a couple times, like 1 or 2 times, I'm like, man, I had this quick story, one example. I do DoorDash sometimes, so you know that's delivery food service, and I also work at AT&T. But you know how it is, Brother Grant. You gotta line that check up, you know.
That's right.
I ain't gonna go out, you know what I'm saying?
That's right.
And so I had DoorDash one night. I got I think like $60, but then I remember, I think it was back in March or February. I remembered, I was like, man, the water due bill the water bill is due, I think Friday or Thursday, and I hadn't paid it yet. So, and I know in my account, like I didn't have enough for it at the time. So I'm like, man, I want my water to get cut off. I got 2 roommates. They counting on me for this. So, and I literally, and I thought about the couple times it already happened. Like where, you know, it just came out and it happened and it played out exactly how it was supposed to. I look back, I got on my bed, and before I even opened my bank app, because I knew what I had before, I had like $60-something. My water bill was like 90. I looked and I was like, I literally uttered the word. I said, man, I ain't got nothing to worry about. I'm so serious. I ain't got nothing to worry about. Before I even opened the bank app, I opened my app. I had like 3-something in there. I'm like, boy, I just got happy, boy. I swear, I got so happy because I was like, man, like I knew it because I already knew what he did for me, and you know, $264 of federal income tax may not mean nothing to nobody, but it meant something to me that day. You know what I'm saying?
You better
But
believe it.
It hit at the right moment, and then 2, the second thing. I would say that, you know, we all know, Brother Grant, I think you said it earlier when it said it takes a village to raise a child. But I think a lot of people don't realize that for men and women, but it takes a village to sustain a man, like sustain a man and woman. Like it really takes the people that you've been around, like most comforting things is that when I see people my age that are still engaged in that spirituality from when they grew up, and they still apply it, and they still speak, you know, they still speak the word of God, they quote the word of God, and I see how God is working in their life, and then we uplift each other and we encourage each other. That's some of the most comforting things, because like I said, a lot of times when it comes when we were younger, it was kind of like when we hear stuff from old folk, you know, older people, it was like, man, it's just them old folk talking. And then we felt like sometimes when they looked at us, it felt like, shoot, it was just, that's just them young folk, and they don't know no better because they ain't been nowhere, you know. And I feel like a lot of the times, you know, we get it confused, like, yeah, you know, you done walk the road, but people got, like you said, the world evolved, so we walk the same road, but the road then got a little different. You know, it's certain obstacles that done got put into place where it's the same type of walk, but it's not the exact same walk. So just tying that back into what I was saying, man, it takes each other. It takes me, like I talk to Micah like as much as I can. I've been talking to Cam, especially since he got in high school. Like, bro, I'm big bro. Like, I got you. Same thing with little David Wright, little Jacob Wright. Like, bro, they tell me like, dog, hey, I miss you, man. Like, I miss them too. Like, I'm here. If you need anything, I'm here. It takes each other to uplift each other, because if we just relying on the people that are steadily getting older and have been there, man, and we're not really accounting for each other, and like Micah said, having that vulnerability with each other, like it takes real brothers to really just sit down and like, hey, let's talk about what we're really going through. You know, like I know Micah probably watches the podcast, and I'm gonna stop ranting right quick. It's a podcast called I Am Athlete.
Hey, yeah.
I really enjoy watching that podcast.
Yes.
They're putting an example of, even though they're in like mid to late 30s, early 40s, but they giving the example and the image that, you know, brothers holding each other, like checking on each other, like mental health checks, business health checks, emotional, like where are you, 1 to 10, what's the scale, like, or what are you on 1 to 10 of how you're feeling emotionally, you know, what's going on in life. Like, we really talking about, like, and yeah, they talk about daily events, but I really just love that example that they putting out there of, you know, we're here for each other, you know, because
I
at the end
think,
of the day, we're trying to break those.
yeah, I think, and what you said is important, that you guys reach and check on each other. Now, let me tell you one thing: women always do that. Women always call and check and talk. Men, Michael mentioned it earlier, sometimes tend to not want to do that. But I know Micah knows me and his pops talk a lot. We check on each other. I know Micah and Chris do the same thing, and you guys talk with Cam, and Cam, it's important that you do that too. We must be able to glean from one another's experiences to help build us. So I have this question here for y'all, since he kind of brought this up. We're talking about intellectual challenges to Christian faith. that you have encountered. When you go off to college, you're going to come across a lot of people who got different perspectives about life, even about God and even about other religions that they may claim to be of the faith, or a totally different faith altogether. You're going to hear stuff, and a lot of it is along social and political means to discredit Christian faith. So, what have been some intellectual challenges to your faith that you've come across? I'll start with Micah, but then Cam, I want to hear from you because you're in high school, and I know you hear different perspectives as well. Micah?
Actually, I think this was so much happened in college for me. I could write a book, man, seriously. But sophomore year of college, this is right before I got online and everything. GPA was great, but I had this English class that I needed to take because it was really, I forgot why I had to take it. I think it was a prereq from TSU, even though I was doing prereqs from another school at the same time. And so this English teacher had us write a paper. He was very, philosophical and theology based and everything. Too smart for your own good. So he tells us to write a paper, and the prompt, I'll never forget the prompt. It was said, expound upon why throughout the Bible there are many examples of God being sexist. So me being a Christian, I'm like, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is not sexist. Looks like I'm gonna just have to take an L on that paper and just go on about my day. And I'm not gonna lie, I did not follow the prompt. What I did was, he gave me a C on the paper, right? Because I didn't follow the prompt. But he said, I remember his feedback. He was like, you expounded upon examples that were contrary to the prompt. But if you aren't a person that actually believes that God is sexist, that's not even possible. Then every example that I gave was correct. I gave examples throughout the Bible that men aren't necessarily domineering over women. It's just saying that it's certain roles that we have to feel that are just God given. That's just the way it is. And so I had to take an L on that paper and actually ended up failing the class because that was my
Yeah. So Cam, what about you? You in high school? What has been some intellectual challenges? And that means debates that have come towards your Christian faith.
I know it's actually one of my English classes this year, and I had the same teacher last year. I know he's like, okay, I'm not a spiritual person, but then he was like, I also believe there's something out there, but I don't know what it is. And so one day we was in class just going back and forth about it, just talking about how, okay, God, there is a God out there, and then he switched to be like, well, I don't believe in heaven or hell. And so then we switched it back to like, okay, in the Bible, it says this and this. And so he was like, well, he switched it again. He was like, well, every event in the Bible is basically, what is it, a metaphor. And he was like, well, not a metaphor. It was like, so he was just basically trying to say that he's something out there, but it's not God. So I was like, the class ended and we just had to wash my hands with it and going on about the day. But it's been multiple times in class where we've talked about that. And so.
And listen, and the reason I asked that question is because, we come across a lot of challenges to our faith, but the one thing that we have to be reminded, I always tell people, it is you who are trying to disprove the existence of God, which means you believe there's a God, because you don't have to disprove something that is not. Like I don't have to disprove that Godzilla is not real. Duh. But if you're going around and people are challenging you, so I'm glad to hear you guys standing on on your faith and standing on what you know to be true, because that happens and so many times. All right, so we're gonna we will be closing out with this last question, and I want to hear from you on this here. Um, if you were advising a young person and so forth, well, better yet, I'll change it to this one here. When it comes to young men, young women growing in their faith, what's one advice you would give to parents or to the church of where we could be better as parents, or the way the church can be better to help young people grow in their faith? What's one advice that you would give to the church or give to parents to help young people grow in their faith?
I would definitely say that it would more so be, I wouldn't even just say directly to parents, but the families of these children, right? God just doesn't speak to you. He also speaks to that individual, that child. And so God's plan that he may put on their heart, that may not make sense to you. And although you are a family member, although you are a parent, and you do want the best for your child or your family member, everything isn't going to make sense to you, because, what God has placed on that individual's heart, it may not make sense. And that's okay, because as long as that child or your nephew, niece, they put God first, everything's going to be okay. Just take a chill pill, relax, and just know that it's going to be okay. And it may not feel good to watch them go through and struggle and put themselves in positions like that. But just know that, God just doesn't speak to you. He also speaks to children, and he also speaks to the younger generation.
Okay. Michael, briefly, can you still hear us, Michael?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can y'all hear me?
Okay. So briefly
Yeah.
tell us what's one advice you would give to parents or to the church when talking about helping young people develop their or grow in their faith?
A couple of things I would say. One, to the parents is and church, like I was referring to earlier, just to listen, because I feel like young people nowadays, they're going through some of the same problems, but they're having a whole different set of problems on an everyday basis in terms of well, like an example that popped in my head, like a little before, I think it kind of may have started right around your time coming up, Brother Grant. But Black people, man, we used to be unified in terms of, well, more unified than we are now, because I feel like we all had a common fight that we were fighting, struggle of, like, with segregation, racism, and everything, so on and so forth. But then now, if you look at the youth nowadays, it's like, and obviously the media has a part in painting the picture of it, but man, it's so many people that's our age and young people dying, like, from each other because we have no guidance. And so I feel like if the church and parents, if we really listen and just really talk and see how our children are doing on a day to day, and like you said, checking on them emotionally, mentally, like where are they at in their headspace, then I feel like that'll speak volumes, and that'll do a lot of good. Also, I feel like parents and the church need to let young people know that, man, God will pull out all the stops. Like, God, if God wants to speak to you through somebody who may be in a way worse situation than you are, he'll do that. He may speak to you, somebody, he may use a homeless person, for instance, that you may come into contact with, you may encounter, just to drop something in your life or a nugget in your life so that you can pick it up. And it came from a homeless person. People, as people, we unconsciously judge sometimes. We're like, man, I can't learn nothing from you because you're not in a better position or in the position I'm in. But at the same time, it's like, God don't just use all the saints and the soldiers to really get his point across, and to teach you and let you know that he's there. So I would just say, to sum all that up, is just be open-minded about how you receive life, and perspective. I always say life is all about perspective. And you know, once, like Brother Grant, like you said, once you get to college, man, you're gonna meet a lot of people that have all type of different perspectives of, because they come from different backgrounds and they come from different perspectives. But at the end of the day, as long as you be able to learn something from somebody and be able to tie it back to your spiritual journey and your everyday life, then I feel like it was an interaction that did well and did good towards you.
All right. Cam?
I would say to get involved. I know most people my age, yeah, they just go to church, then leave, go home, but some of them not really just in church to have that spiritual like connection with God and with other people. And so that'd be like the biggest advice to say, just for your child, or just even some older people to get involved with church.
All right. And so I said that was going to be the last question, but this is actually the last question. What are you doing right now to maintain your relationship with God, and why do you continue to do that?
For me, it's I listen to a lot of podcasts, but not only that, I listen to just for those podcasts, if anybody's wondering, Chuck Swindoll and Charles Stanley. Those are the two. They're older white men, but they have a lot of insight and a lot of wisdom. But also just reading my Bible. I try to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning, every morning, just to read my Bible. I'm really focusing on Psalms right now because I think David is an extremely vulnerable, extremely like open person that's in the Bible. You know, this dude, he went through so much. And so I'm really focusing on the Psalms right now. But the reason why I do that is because I feel that starting your day and ending your day, if you don't end your day, definitely start your day with the word of God, is because once you walk out that door, and sometimes even while you're in your own house, the enemy can attack your mind. You know, it's a war for your mind every day. And I think that people really have to live in that and understand that. But I really don't have, like, I have to show an amazing amount of patience at the job that I'm at, whether it's dealing with other adults or students. And so, you know, to be in that right mind frame to where I can actually represent, you know, Christ in the best way possible, and my family and myself, I have to be equipped. So just make sure you're putting on the whole armor of God, as we say, to fight the wiles of the devil. So that's what I do.
Cameron?
I know besides just reading my Bible, on the Bible app that I got on my phone, they have like daily plans. And then I know like the one I'm doing right now is win the day. It's like an 8-day devotional plan. It's like start out with a devotional and then give you 2 scriptures, sometimes 3, and then it has like this whole read about to read, and I do that every day.
Michael, quickly, what are some things you do, or what are you doing to maintain your relationship with God, and why do you do that?
Me personally, I know I set an alarm just for. I'm not somebody that just consciously like goes out of my way to read the Bible every day. So what I'll do is I'll get the Bible app and I'll just set an alarm for the verse of the day, like just simple stuff, little small stuff like that, and then just trying to build a consistent routine with spirituality and with my everyday life. You know, whether it's first thing I do when I get up is I read that scripture or I pray. You know, I try to pray besides over my food. You know, so a lot of us do that. We just pray over our food. That be the only prayer we say. But just praying and praying for each other. You know, praying for each other, praying for everybody else. You know, if you're only praying for yourself all the time, I feel like that's kind of selfish, because that's kind of making it seem like you're the only person that's going through life, and it's not. And like I said before, we all need to lift each other up. So it's just trying to build a consistent routine every day.
And listen, I wanted that to be to go out so that parents and young people and people older than you who are listening and watching this is that how important it is. And because we sometimes think that young people are not involved as it is in church, and they are, and there are plenty who are not, but they need to know why. And even those who are struggling with their faith, who are your age, those who are older than you and those who are younger than you, are struggling with their faith, and they need to hear and see that God still exists, and that God still has a multitude of people who still honor him and worship him. We don't want to develop that feeling like Elijah, who was hiding in the cave thinking that he was the only prophet of God still alive. And so we have to be reminded of that. Pastor, as you come back in, Pastor, do you have something you want to add before we close out this morning? And as Pastor prepares to come back in, because he might have stepped away from it, I really appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your faith, sharing your walk, sharing your journey. I know your parents and so forth are very proud of you. There are a number of people. You saw me looking down. I'm looking on my phone at the people who are responding, and you guys have touched a lot of people. One in particular, Sister Hollins, Mary Hollins, said, "This is great, guys," and she also commented on many of the things that you and Michael and all of you guys said. But we have a number of people on there. I think there's right now there's nearly over 250 different people who are listening to this. So it's really important that, as it says, let your light shine before men that they may see your good works and praise your Father who art in heaven. That's what you guys are doing. You don't know who you're going to impact. I have kids that I've coached and taught more than 20 years ago will still send me messages and so forth saying that they're still walking in faith and so forth. It's a very important aspect of what we do. So Pastor Wilson, if you are there, you can chime back in before we decide to close out. There you go, Pastor. So, Pastor, give us something from your end. What have you gleaned from these young men today?
I just appreciate them for coming on and being transparent today. And you guys have helped other young men. And so that's what it's all about. You guys basically did what you've preached today. And so I appreciate you for doing that. And thank you guys for what you're doing. And I know Marcus has really been touched. Marcus Gibson, great young man, and definitely on his way to great things. So we're looking forward to him, Cameron. All of you guys have come out of Galilee, and I'm sure the membership is proud of you all. Pastor Jones has had a great impact on you guys' life. So thank you for remembering him and just remembering your upbringing. I appreciate you guys.
Hey, and one thing, Micah, just so you know, one of your old coaches, he got on too, Coach Bradford.
Oh, man.
Coach Bradford got on and chimed on. So listen, next week, Pastor, I've already shared this with you. I ask you guys if tune into the Galilee Facebook link, and you can always pick this up when we go. So it'll be probably 2 weeks from now. We're going to have young ladies on. We're going to have young, even though it's the men's ministry, we're going to get the perspective of some young adult women as well so that they too can give perspective on this. And from Marcus Gibson, I'll read what he said. He said, this is from Marcus Gibson. Say, hey guys, just wanted to say, hey, and thank you. I'm starting to try and get a few scholarships right now is what he's saying for college since I'm almost a senior. He said this really helped him, and he would like to reach out more to you guys. So what I'll probably do when I get through with this, I'll send you guys his pop's number, and I think at his mom's number, and then y'all can just link up and he can get y'all numbers. And or if y'all don't mind, I'll just send the numbers to his parents for you guys, okay? So he can reach out from you guys too.
You can send mine directly to him.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, mine
right.
too. You said Mark is a senior?
Yeah, that's cool.
That's
almost crazy. Man. He's almost a senior, man.
That's really crazy.
I'm old, man.
Man. Yeah, he's almost a senior, man. So everybody's growing up. So listen, guys, I thank you guys for coming on, man. Appreciate you guys. Y'all have a great day, man. And I thank y'all parents for what they've done with you guys. Yeah. And I thank God. Ultimately, I thank God. Yeah, okay?
Cam, hey, keep your head up, man. I'm going to be out there for real. Michael, love you, boy.
See ya.
All right, man. All right, Brother Grant.
Love all y'all, man. Y'all be safe. I'm be in contact.
All right.